Hello, and welcome to Case Closed. I'm Charlie Langton, your host. We'll soon go inside an actual courtroom in the Warren District Court to see a real small claims case in action. Now, under Michigan law, small claims cases may be brought by individuals seeking $3,000 in damages or less. Neither side may be represented by an attorney in small claims court, and the judge's decision is final. Now, let's take a look at the case of where there's a will, there's a way.
'37th District Court's in session. Judge Schmer presiding. Please remove your hats and shut off your cell phones.
This is your case.
And my name is Pat Lepard, and in around 1960, Luther and Edward Chavis took me in. They are my biological aunt and uncle.
Okay.
At 2.5, they raised me since then, and they became my parents in all essence of the word.
Okay.
In 1971, they moved into Orchard Street in Warren. That was my family home that I grew up in.
Okay.
In 1994, Ed and Ann Chavis, my mother, passed away. At that time, there were certain personal items in the house. This was like a second home to our family and to my children. There were a lot of things in the house that were ours, my mother's.
Not your real mother's?
Ed and Ann Chavis is my adopted mother.
Right. So you say your mother, are you talking about your biological mother? Or
No, she is my mother. Ed and Ann Chavis raised me. I consider her my mother.
Okay.
Not my biological mother, but
So when you say mother, that's to whom you're referring?
Ed and Ann Chavis.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, and when I refer to my father, that's Luther Edward Chavis. He raised me.
All right.
Okay. There were things in the house such as personal pictures.
You were never adopted by them, correct?
I was never legally adopted.
All right.
Actually, Edna and Luther were my aunt and uncle. Luther, my biological mother was Luther's sister.
Okay.
Okay. There were items in the house that my father gave to me. His only request was that, such as there's an oil painting that was over the TV that was my mother, and he requested that those things, as well as some oil paintings of my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandmother, that these items belonged to me. He just requested that until something happened to them, if I could leave them hanging in the house, as well as some other pictures. The items, there are other items in the house that were given to me that were hand-painted or handmade by Edna, which, again, my dad said, they're yours, just whenever I die, you can have them. In 1999, after a short relationship, he met Annie Chavis, which her legal name is Annie Chavis, but everybody calls her Jackie.
Okay.
So he met Jackie in North Carolina, and they married. She moved up here with him in 1999,
Okay.
moved into the house. For the last 7 years, we haven't had a problem. We were family. She introduced me as her daughter. Wasn't a problem. In 2006, November 19th, my dad was admitted to Pike County Hospital through the emergency room. Before any of us had a chance to talk to him, he was put on a respirator.
Okay.
They said in the emergency room that he had requested it, and said that that's what he wanted. November 27th, he went through surgery, had to have a trach put in. So there was no conversation. He passed away December 20th, so there was never any conversation between any of us as far as he wasn't able to talk. Things, again, were still fine with Jackie and I. Didn't seem to be a problem. November 28th, my daughter Angela and I were at the hospital. There was a caseworker who was talking about my dad's situation, rehab. We were thinking that when the rehab was going to be at the hospital, they were going to move him. I didn't know that they were going to move him. So I called Jackie to ask if we could stop by because she wasn't at the hospital. So we went in there, and Jan and Jackie and my daughter and Jackie's grandson was there. And I don't know exactly, since Jackie hasn't talked to me, what the problem was. But there was a lot of hostility, and when I went to...
Problems with what?
Well, in explaining, well, what was going on with my dad, what was happening, no, and Jan's comment was, well, why are they even talking to you? So
Okay.
I went to the hospital the next day. Again, the social worker, my daughter had passed a social worker in the hall, and she said, well, they can't give me any more information because I'm just a niece.
That's right.
So I went to Jackie and I said, Jackie, well, first of all, obviously there was a conversation because the social worker is now referring to me as his niece. I have, for the last 46 and a half years, been his daughter. Is what's going on?
But you're not his daughter.
Well, I understand
You
that.
may have
I
thought of it that way,
And he thought of it that way.
but you're not.
I understand that.
Well, that's important, though.
Okay, I understand that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but through this whole process, okay, even though I'm not his daughter, the items that were in his house still were given to me. They were already given to me before they ever got married. The pictures, some sentimental things, the quilt and things. So
Well,
even though
now
I'm
let's
not,
back up here. This is, and I'm going to refer to this person as your uncle,
okay,
because that's what he is.
okay,
Okay, at some point, your uncle said, you can have these things after I die, correct?
exactly.
These were pictures.
Like my childhood pictures, my daughter's childhood pictures, pictures of, even though he was my uncle, because we're still blood related, the grandparents' pictures were still my grandparents, my great-grandparents.
Right.
There were, sentimental value things, sentimental items in the house that he said, they're yours.
After I die.
They are yours today. In '94, when my mother died,
Okay.
his only request was that I wait until he died to take them. He didn't want to take the pictures off the wall.
So he said, well, what did he say? I give these to you, but you can't have them
He
until I
says,
die?
he says, you know that they're yours.
But
Just
don't take them now.
don't take them until I die. He just didn't want them down.
Now, the plaintiff, who calls herself daughter but is really a niece, wants sentimental stuff from her father, which is really her uncle. Let's see if the judge is sentimental about this sentimental stuff.
On Wednesday, I get a call at work that from Jackie, who says that I need to go to the hospital because they're going to talk about taking my dad off the respirator. Well, the decision pretty much had already been made. What they were doing is that they were going to remove him that day from the respirator. Again, it just was a bad situation, and it went from bad to worse. The funeral, again, Jackie paid for it. We called, the minister called us at 10 o'clock that night to tell us that the funeral, well, actually tell us he was going to be laid out the next day. The next day, I found out his funeral was that day, too. We had initially been told it was on Friday. So the funeral home situation was bad. Things just got bad. So it was the December 20th, 21st. I waited until the 26th, day after Christmas, and I called Jackie, and I said, Jackie, I left a message on her phone because she won't pick up. She screens her calls. I just said, you know what? I don't like the way this is going, the situation. Can we set up an appointment to get together to sit down and talk about it? I get a phone call later that evening, not from Jackie, but from her daughter, who said that it would be a cold day in hell before her mother would meet with me, and then she proceeded to cuss us out and, say that, my dad didn't mean an effing thing to her, and that, it's just, it just been a prison for Jackie for the last 7 years. We had a lot of turmoil with this, so finally my husband wrote her, well, actually, we wrote Jackie a letter that just said, look, for 7 years we've been family. This is not the way family behaves. This is not the way family treats each other. Let's sit down, talk about it, figure out what went wrong so that, all I want is some sentimental stuff. It doesn't have, it's not taking money out of your pocket. It's not, to anybody else, you can't sell it. So it doesn't have any value to you. So just give me those items. And again, we didn't get a response back, so my husband stopped by and to try to talk to Jackie, and Jackie again says, I know I promised you the stuff and you can come back and get it. He comes back to get it, and Sissy is again they're in the car getting ready to drive away, threatening to call the cops, telling us don't come back here again. It just escalated to, you know, to a point where I didn't know what else to do.
Your uncle never had a will, did he?
He
Yes,
didn't.
he did.
Okay, well, just hang on. Okay, sir, let me talk to your wife. Who did he leave things to in his will?
Everything that it was in his will goes to me when it was an older will. So initially it went to Ed and Ann, but Ed and Ann had deceased. If she
Right.
wasn't alive, then it went to me.
Why aren't you in the probate court?
Well, the problem is if we were told that in order to go through probate, I would have to try to, there wasn't enough money because all I wanted was some personal items that it would take years and years to go through probate. If I wanted
That's not necessarily true, but go ahead.
well, that's what we were told by a
Who
lawyer.
took- all right. Do you have a copy of the will?
Yes, we do.
Can I see it?
This is both,
All right, this is a will of Luther Edward Chavis. That's your uncle, correct? What's that, sir?
that was the woman who raised her,
It's what?
That was
woman who
his
raised
first
her.
wife.
her mother, her
That was
aunt.
That was the first
Well, but
wife.
she died first.
Right.
So we don't really care about her will. This will is dated November 13th, 1980. I give, devise, and bequeath all of my property to my wife Edna Ann Chavis, should she survive me. Well, she didn't. In the event my wife Edna Ann Chavis should predecease me, I give, devise, and bequeath to my granddaughter, Angela Marie Lepard, the following items of personal property: 3 guns and my wife's diamond ring. Okay, that's not you.
Right.
In the event my wife Edna Ann Chavis should predecease me, then I give, devise, and bequeath the rest, residue, and remainder of my estate to Patricia Ann Lepard, that is you, of Warren, Michigan.
Aha! There's a will, and a will is a writing. Let's see if the judge gets a little more sentimental because of this will, and we'll find out after this break.